Reps Landry, my friend, the table is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Today I present to you House Bill 215. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you personally for your assistance and professionalism that you've displayed to me personally as I present this very, very important and emotional bill. I also want to thank this committee for their work. In this session, you've done some remarkable things in terms of criminal justice, and I really know that having sat on this committee that it's been a very, very hard task to do, and there's been a lot of criticisms and a lot of observation, but I think that you've done some very, very good work and some very difficult work, and for that I commend you. Having said that, today I bring to you House Bill 215. I bring to you this bill which basically abolishes the death penalty going forward after this piece of legislation was passed. I want to emphasize this is a prospective piece of legislation. It's not retrying those people who are on death row, those people who have been adjudicated through the courts. It's not retrying any of those cases. This is eliminating it as a part of convictions going forward. I know you're going to hear testimony from people today that are opposed to this bill. I respect their opinion, and I say this with all sincerity. This is probably the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Not my career, but my life. I have come to this point in my life about the death penalty because I've grown. I've grown as an individual, I've grown as a legislator, and I've grown spiritually as a man. Mr. Chairman, I'll coin your phrase. I'm not the same man that I was 7 years ago when I sat on this committee and then hear some of the testimony and make some of the tough choices. I come from a law enforcement background, just as the sheriff and Sheriff Howard and Sheriff Pollitt, and we've seen the violence, and we've seen the carnage, we've seen the heinous crimes, we've seen life taken for no reason at all, and still today, I'm sure some of those individual cases, we ask ourselves why would a person do what they do? You're going to hear some testimony this morning for people who are going to come and give you different reasons why we think that the death penalty is wrong for the state of Louisiana. You're going to hear that it's very costly to have this law in the books. You're going to hear the disparity in class and race. You're going to hear the disparity in mental illnesses. And you're going to hear spiritually why people believe that taking a life, whether it's on the streets, in the neighborhoods, in our community, or whether it's under the sanction of government, is wrong. And if I'm not mistaken, we have laws on the book that prohibit suicide, prohibits assist suicide. I just fundamentally believe that death or taking a person's life is fundamentally wrong. Again, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your openness, and I just ask you. And there are some instruments. There are some instruments, Representative Cruz, that's worthy of a full debate. It's worthy not to vote and for this bill in terms of its context, but it's worthy for the full House to debate this issue on the floor. So today I'm asking you again to allow this instrument to move forward and move to the full floor. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if you would allow the green card people to come in.
Yes, sir.
And we're conscious of of the time, and we will definitely try and use, not be redundant in our testimony, but we just ask you for your attention and your patience. And with your permission again, Mr. Chairman, I'll reserve my time for closing.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to yield a little more time, longer than 3 minutes, to the presenters and for their closing as well.
Thank you.
I respect, Colonel and I served on Colonel Justice the first 4 years we were here together. We came in together, and he and I can't say we always agreed on issues, but we always respected to disagree. And there's not many people in the chamber, if anyone, that I have more respect than the Colonel. And so I appreciate him and his service. And why don't I read the cards who do not wish to speak, and then I'm going to read the cards who wish to speak. Filling out cards in favor of the bill wishing not to speak is Darren Bruder, Aaron Steer, Executive Director, National Association of Social Workers, Mary Ray, Promise of Justice, Terry Landry Jr., Southern Poverty Law Center, Will Harrell, VOTE, that's Voices of the Experienced, Reverend Gian Peacock, Rose Viola, Jennifer Harding, representing VOTE, Kelly Garrett, representing VOTE, Rob Tasman, Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops, Michael Calgary, Amy Myers, Aaron Navalance, Tammy Jones, Chico Yancey, representing VOTE, Megan Gorvey, LACDL, and John Burkott, Southern Poverty Law Center. Cards who wish to speak, and if you would come up to the table, Dr. Nicholas Mitchell, he's with the Jesuit Society of Research Institute, Sharif Kuzan, and Jessica White. Miss White, are you in the chamber? Yes, ma'am. And gentlemen, I usually do ladies first. So Miss White, 3 minutes.
Hi. So for our Louisiana death penalty, we know that it has to be a murder, first-degree murder or treason. However, I've never seen anyone have death penalty in Louisiana for treason. But I'm going to talk about the cost inefficiency in the death penalty. Death row inmates for a year at Angola cost about $64,301.61. An average general population inmate, a healthy inmate, in Angola costs $13,952. As a trustee inmate, which is the lowest security, they are only $7,487 for a year. So going back up to that $64,000, with that, we are using heightened security, appeals processes, prosecution, court fees, all of these things that come into our system when we invoke the death penalty. Right now we have 66 people on death row. So remember that $64,000 is only for 66 people. However, to keep the death penalty running, since 2004, it has cost our tax dollars $15.6 million a year just to keep those 66 people on death row. Fairly expensive. And this bill is to go forward. So anything past August 19th, past August 2019, it's an estimated cost from the time of arrest to the time of execution will cost $281 million. That's, again, 66 people on death row, $281 million just to keep them on death row and to have them executed. There are definitely some more cost-efficient ways to keep people in custody. Obviously, we do not want these people coming out of custody. They are typically a danger to society if they are convicted and found guilty. These ways are simple as life without parole. They will not get out. Another one is life without parole plus restitution. In this case, the offender will be paying back court costs. They will be paying a restitution to their victims or their victims' families. That's a different way to take that death penalty off the case, but still keep them in custody and even have them paying out to our victims, because we can't let those victims go silent either. They are very important in this area. Additionally, In the past 15 years, we've only had one execution in the state of Louisiana. In the past 10 years, in the past 30 years, there's only been 10 executions in the state of Louisiana. That's not a whole lot. We're paying $15.6 million
About 30
a
seconds
year.
left.
I'm sorry?
About 30 seconds left.
Okay, we're paying $15.6 million a year to keep this on the book for something that we're not even using. So my question to you is, do you really want to continue to invest in over $200 million in a system that's giving out more exonerations than executions? Because since 1977, we have had 10 people exonerated from death row. We've also had 128 people, which is 53% of the people that were on death row. 128 of them were reversed or lessened.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kuzan?
Thank you, committee, for having me this morning. I'm the 75th person in the country to be exonerated from death row. And I'm not going to talk to you about the numbers and the facts about the financial portion of the death penalty. I want to read a quote from one of the justices of the United States Supreme Court. They said, "The execution of an illegally and factually innocent person is an intolerable event." I'm 40 years old. The death penalty has a continuing collateral consequence. For 25 years, I'm still trying to get my mental health together. I don't know what it is I want to do in my life. I don't know what I enjoy anymore. I don't even understand the path that my life could have taken because of the death penalty. As I look at you, each and every one of you, I want you to look at me as if I was your son. And I want you to ask yourself how you would have felt if your son was 16 years old and placed on death row. A lot of times we don't understand how I feel until it hits home. So I just ask each and every one of you, think of your kids. Think of your kids. What I feel today, I have 4 kids. And I hate to see my kids have to go through what I've gone through because of the death penalty. Now, I understand that they have some people on death row that are there for things that they have done. But people like me and the victims, because in my situation, the victim's family has also gone through a mental anguish because they thought that the right person was on death row for the crime. So my heart goes out to victims in this situation as well, because I'm not the only one that tends to be a victim at the end of the day. So when you vote on this bill, think of your children. Think of the society that you want your kids to be raised in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Dr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Dr. Nicholas Mitchell. I am a research professor specializing in race and racism at the Jesuit Social Research Institute at Loyola University, New Orleans. I support abolishing the death penalty because it is unjustifiable public policy. My opposition is based on 2 concerns. First, in order for the death penalty to be remotely justifiable, the criminal justice system would have to guarantee that no innocent person would be sentenced to death and executed. The criminal justice system can make no such guarantees. According to a 2016 article published in the Southern University Law Center's Journal of Race, Gender, and Poverty, from 1976 to 2015, out of 155 resolved death penalty cases in Louisiana, 127 were reversed, which includes 9 exonerations and 28 executions. At the time this article was published in April 2016, 9 people had been wrongly convicted and sentenced to death by the state since 1976. That number now stands at 11. It is inhumane, immoral, and an exercise in the most grotesque form of public policy negligence to continue this practice in light of a criminal justice system that cannot guarantee that no innocent person will be put to death. There is no acceptable margin of error in this regard. The only acceptable rate of executing innocent people is 0. Second, sentencing and the application of the death penalty in Louisiana is quantifiably racially skewed. The last white person in Louisiana to be executed when the victim was black was a soldier found guilty of stabbing 2 enslaved black women with a bayonet in 1752, which predates the French and Indian War. The data presented in the aforementioned article shows that between 1976 and 2015, a black male convicted of killing a white female is 29.9 times more likely to be sentenced to death than when a black male kills another black male, and is 10.8 times more likely to be sentenced to death than when a black male kills a black female. The racial disparities even extend to the appeals process, where the killers of whites are clearly less likely to be reversed. Not only are death sentences more likely if the victim is white victim cases are less likely to be reversed. The reversal rate is 79.7% in white victim cases versus 89.2% in black victim cases. This reveals a racial bias in the application of capital punishment and exonerations. Continuing the death penalty in Louisiana is an admission by the state that the prospects of executing an innocent person and the racial disparities in capital punishment are secondary concerns to the erroneous belief that the death penalty is a deterrent and is justifiable public policy. To the supporters of the death penalty, I am forced to ask, how many innocent men and women executed is the magic number for you to rethink your support? How big must the racial disparities get before you reconsider if the state has the right to execute a citizen? I understand why capital punishment invokes so much emotion. The crimes that trigger capital punishment rightfully cause revulsion in society. Nevertheless, for the reasons I have indicated, capital punishment is an antiquated, flawed, racist, and unjustifiable practice that should be abolished. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we still have is it Bishop Doss? You in the chamber? And Shelton Fabre, Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops. Gentlemen.
Choose in the middle.
Bishop Doss, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. I'm Joe Morris Doss, 30 years a bishop of the Episcopal Church, 50 years a member of the Bar of Louisiana. The power of the law is in its symbolic clout. It points to what is considered moral, to the unity and orderliness of society, to what is truly important to society, to the degree to which certain behavior will not be tolerated in society. In criminal law, the sanctions to be imposed for violation of different laws indicate the extent to which an offender will be judged by society. For example, a fine tells potential offenders that they should obey a particular law, but a felony conviction imposes a significant curse on the behavior society considers immoral and makes an offender an outcast. The measure of the sanction to be imposed for an offense points to, matches as well as it can, the measure of the crime. Just so, for most of human history, the crime of murder has been matched by the taking of the life of the killer. However, the symbolic power of the law has an underside that has to be recognized and guarded against vigilantly. Immoral law teaches immorality. The death penalty has plenty of symbolic clout, but it teaches immorality, not Christian morality, dysfunction, not unity and order. We will never have a correction system that is sincerely designed for the purpose of rehabilitation, reconciliation, and restoration until we free ourselves from the death penalty, the supreme sanction that exists solely for the purpose of punishment and retribution. We will never faithfully accept the fundamental Christian promise that the gospel has the power to convert and transform the life of each and every human being until we free ourselves from the death penalty, which stands as the absolute statement that some people are incapable of God's redemption, which is an action that takes away their personal opportunity ever for salvation. We never will faithfully believe the fundamental Christian promise that God refuses to give up on anyone, any human child of God, until we free ourselves from the death penalty, an action that Christians can only impose in the belief that it is God's will. We never will resolve our problems over race relations until we free ourselves from the death penalty, for as a definitive matter of life and death, and given the way it actually works in our society, it serves as the most absolute symbol of systemic racism.
About 15 more seconds, Bishop.
We never will be free of the many prejudices held in society. We will not be free. We will not be able to teach the commandment that killing is wrong. We will not be able to free ourselves from killing innocent people. We will not be able to offer the needed care for our victims that we limit at the present time to the legal process. We never will have a state that has a core concern for the value of life as long as we embrace a death penalty that depends upon a culture of death. Thank you.
Thank you. Bishop Fabre.
Thank you, Mr.
Reverend
Chairman.
Fabre. Okay.
My name is Bishop Shelton Fobb. I serve as Bishop of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodeau. I'm also Chairman of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops Ad Hoc Committee Against Racism. For Catholics and many people of goodwill, the death penalty is inadmissible in today's world because it offends the dignity of the human person without actually helping to promote the common good. Every faith tradition teaches that each of us is made in the image and likeness of God, and that all human life has value. A person does not lose their humanity even after committing a serious crime. At one time, some people supported the death penalty because they did not want the defendant to ever be released. This fear is no longer a concern. In Louisiana, a sentence of life without parole means exactly that, life without any possibility of release. There are other ways of holding defendants accountable, ways in which we can affirm the inviolable value of human life and avoid irreversible mistakes. For as long as human beings are making these decisions, the system will be imperfect. Just as the risk of executing an innocent person is unacceptable, so too is the racial prejudice that infects every aspect of our death penalty process, which has already been shared. Some argue that the death penalty is needed to support the families of victims, but families are not of one mind with regard to capital punishment. Many victims' families do not believe that more killing will help with their healing or honor their loved one's memory. For victims who support the death penalty, the process is more likely to result in decades of appeals rather than the promised closure. The millions of dollars that Louisiana spends on a small number of capital cases would be better spent on victims' services and making sure that families have the support they need. Louisiana has not had an execution since 2010 because the pharmaceutical companies that make the drugs used in lethal injections do not want them to be used in executions. The companies have made clear that they manufacture their products to save lives, not destroy them. This is the only sensible and moral position. In nearly a decade, we have seen that we can do without the death penalty. It's time for Louisiana to bring our public policies in line with our values, to embrace a culture of life, to choose mercy, and to end capital punishment once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Also filling out cards in support, wishing not to speak, is Haley Bro, LACDL, Kevin Caldwell, Common Sense, NOLA, Edgar Cage, Together Louisiana, Rodney Braxton, Conservatives, concerned about the death penalty, Henry Jones Jr., Megan Garvey, LACDL, and Sachacha Zapata, LACDL. Okay.
Percy Jones Jr., I wish to speak.
And I think you also dropped your credit card. So you were coming up anyway. So why don't you come on up, no charge. And we may hand you, come on up here, and then we're going to hand you your card back and fill out you that we should speak, but go ahead and come on up.
Thank you, sir.
3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
And thank you for in the committee for the opportunity to come before you to present the information I have today. And by all means, thank you for returning that credit card. My name is Hersey Jones Jr. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. I come to support the abolishment of the death penalty. I'll note that I am a trained lawyer as well as an ordained Baptist minister. And over the years, I've had many discussions about the death penalty and really could not come down one way or the other. What pushed me, two things pushed me against the death penalty. The first thing was noting that in the Bible, when Cain, the first murderer, appealed to God to save him from the death penalty, God did. I've always heard Christians say, an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, but that example actually was God having an opportunity to give the death penalty to a murderer. When the murderer said, save me, God did. I'm also here to present information on some research I did about the origin of the death penalty, which I did not know, and people I've talked to did not know, and I wanted to share with the committee. In a nutshell, in the early part of the 1900s, the Shreveport Times and Shreveport published numerous editorials openly and unapologetically calling for the mob lynching of blacks. Basically saying if they violate or commit assault against white women, they should be mob lynched. Mob lynched, for those who don't know, is not just lynching. It could be killing, it could be stabbing, it could be shooting. It's definitely extrajudicial. In those editorials, the Times also noted that although many whites had been given the death penalty, none had been executed. They complained about that too. But when a white who killed 6 people in South Louisiana got his sentence of death, twice convicted, commuted, the Times supported the commutation of the sentence. Said, hey, the jury may be wrong, the people may know more. What these articles did was to traumatize, and what we'll say today is radicalize North Louisiana, that mob lynchings were going to continue unless the law did something. And the law did. It started giving blacks the death penalty. What you see in all the other studies is the disparity. What these articles point out is that disparity is not by accident. The articles clearly called for, if you want mob lynchings to stop, then you've got to give blacks the death penalty. And when blacks got the death penalty, the first one, Charlie Coleman in Louisiana, the Times celebrated that he was convicted on yesterday, and before they went to print, he had already been executed. Although whites who had gotten the death penalty had months and months of appeal.
About 30 seconds, sir.
So the point is to say, when we look at the disparity, I want to bring to the attention of the committee that Caddo led the nation, was third in the nation in mob lynchings, and is also the same parish that has a disproportionate number of blacks going to the death penalty. And the reason is because of that traumatization of the juries in North Louisiana. They were not deliberating in open mind. They were deliberating knowing that if you don't give the death penalty, and in one case they broke in a jail at noon, pulled the black prisoner out and lynched him on the courthouse square. So the traumatization in the community, I believe, and anthropologists can support why in the minds of blacks and whites, this death penalty was originally a tool of white supremacy designed to traumatize blacks, but it also traumatized whites. Because as whites decided not to vote for the death penalty, they also had to consider what's going to be the response of the community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to yield the table to the opposition. First is Mr. Scott Perilou, who's my district attorney. Welcome to the Capitol. Susan Perkins with Stand Up for Louisiana Victims. And Wayne Gazzardo.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to defer my time to Mr. Gazzardo and Mr. Mills. And Your Honor, they're here to speak. Mr. Gazzardo is a resident of Livingston Parish and would like to speak to the committee.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gazzardo.
I was here a couple of months ago, and I'm not going to get into all the details because hopefully you will listen. You were listening to what I was saying about my daughter's murder. She was murdered at Calendar's restaurant in Baton Rouge. A gentleman had practiced 3 days before, rode there on a bicycle, shot a bartender in the back, put a gun to another man's head and it jammed, but he knew how to eject it because he had already practiced. Went in my daughter's office. She was the manager. She was getting the deposit ready for deposit. He knew her routine. When she heard him shoot the bartender in the back and left for dead, she picked up 911. She was trying to get help for an employee. While she was on 911, he walked in, told her to shut up, bitch, and he killed her. Cold blood. Took the $7,000 and run. They had a gentle, and I'm talking about a gentle man that was hiding in the freezer. Well-liked. Got scared when he heard her get shot. He was running out the back door. Todd Washington stopped, took aim, and shot him in the back for the thrill of the kill. He had gone there to rob and kill. So that's what happened at Calendar's that day. And all I can tell you is at Christmas time, Thanksgivings, birthdays, all of our family, we've got an empty chair. And they can talk about everything they want to talk about. We've got an empty chair from a good, great, smiling girl. That's her picture right there. And we miss her every day. And it never goes away. Wessinger decided he was going to go shopping. He ran for 9 days. He was shopping here, but he ran to Garland, Texas for 9 days. He was brought back, and he was arrested in Garland, Texas. I'm sorry. He went to trial in 1997 and convicted of 2 counts of capital murder. His first appearance in court was, "I'm a soldier for the Lord." Well, everybody was just happy to death. The next time he came in, he had 2 tattoos of teardrops on his eye, which means he was proud of what he did. No remorse. He was proud of it. And it really got to me, but that's another thing. For the next 23 years, my wife and I went through 23 appeals and more. Every day. Went before a left-wing judge that just acted like we wasn't even there, not paying any attention to us whatsoever. But long story short, it went to the federal Supreme Court in New Orleans. They overturned his 3. Then these people that came out appealed to the Supreme Court in Washington, the U.S. Supreme Court, and they voted 8-1 to uphold his execution. 8-1. That's unheard of. And then the hell started. Our governor decides to go sign a moratorium, which he sent his little lawyer, Jeffrey Cody, in there for what? I don't know. I don't know what he was so scared of, but anyway. And then I hear these people talk about the death penalty. The death penalty is not sought in all murder cases. The district attorneys have a criteria they have to go by. They just can't say John Bowe shot him because they was in the street. They've got a criteria that they have to go by. So everybody that murders somebody does not, the district attorneys don't go after the death penalty. I've heard Mr. Landry speak several times, and I respect him. But when he talks about expenses, it insults the hell out of me that he would put a price tag on anybody else that thinks that way on my daughter's life. It insults me. Number 2, if you want to look at the expenses of it, is that when the federal defenders become involved, they have a free rein. When we went to ours, they flew people in from Washington. They flew people in from California. They put them up. They fed them. They paid them fees on our money. We're doing that. And sometimes I think if they don't do that on purpose to run the price up so these people can say how expensive it is. It's on the tail end. And it's these lawyers that's coming in from Texas. I guess they didn't think we had experts smart enough in Louisiana to give them what they wanted. But long story short, they didn't get what they wanted. It was a vote 8-1. Number 2, innocent executions. I agree. We would never want to see an innocent person executed. But with the way we went through appellate courts over and over and over and over and heard some of the most ludicrous things you can think of, we had to keep our mouth shut. We're not doing it anymore. And it's very unlikely. I feel, I'm not saying it's zero, but it's very unlikely with the system that we have, with DNA, with ballistics, with everything else, that we're going to execute an innocent man. May happen. I don't know. Another thing.
30 seconds, Mr. Gazzardo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, we appreciate you. Just about 30 seconds.
Profile to the death. My family believes in pro-life. Born that can make their own decision. I don't know how in the world that people can compare pro-life with execution. Number 2, and I've been waiting for a while to get this out. I've heard Mr. Landry say on several occasions, from the womb to the tomb. Well, let me tell you something. My wife carried our baby in her womb for 9 months. We educated her. We taught her right from wrong. We taught her to make good choices. Todd Wessinger walked in, made a choice, killed her in cold blood. Her mother carried her in the womb. Todd Wessinger put her in the tomb. And I'm wondering if that's what he's talking about. I'm sorry, but I'm... And barbaric. Talking about barbaric, this gentleman right here, his mother was beaten to death, raped, and set on fire. An elderly lady. 6-year-old boiled to death. 2-year-old burned to death. A daughter shot and killed in front of her mother. That's barbaric, Mr. Landry.
Ms. Gazzardo, we can wrap it up.
Okay. All right. Finishing.
Yes, sir.
My last Saturday was my daughter's birthday. Me and my wife spent the day at the cemetery putting flowers. Wessinger was walking around Angola with the tears on his eyes, able to talk to his mom on Sunday. We couldn't do it. My son took his mother to dinner for Mother's Day, and guess what? Had an empty chair sitting right there. Our lives aren't the same, and we don't want closure, because there's no such thing as closure to us victims' families. There's no closure. It's never over with. All we want is for y'all to give our loved ones justice. And one more thing, because I've got to address it, because I've heard over and over about the racially. Why do we have to always make this racially motivated? It's not. Mr. Mills, I can tell you right now, I guarantee you not one victim on death row sits there when they heard their child was murdered and says, was he black? Was he white? Was he green? We don't care what color he was. We didn't pick. My daughter didn't pick who killed her.
Thank you, Mr. Gazzardo. Thank you, sir.
Do I need to leave here now? I need
You good? You okay? All right, Mr. Perkins?
Yeah. All right. Look, my name is Robert L. Mills Sr. I'm up here because on January 25th.
Hang on just a minute. Point of order, Representative Norton.
Button is on. The gentleman that just left the table, I do have a question whenever the time is, proper.
You have a question, Mr. Gazzardo?
Yes, the guy that just left.
Come on up, but we're going to let Mr. Perkins finish, and then you can get to your question. Mr. Perkins? Mr. Perkins?
Mr. Mills.
Mills. I'm sorry, Mr. Mills.
All right. My name is Robert L. Mills Sr. On January 25th in 1997, man, they across the street raped and killed my mother. All right. Way from Orange, Texas. He had 5 rape charges against him on Saturday people. All right, what he did, he raped my mother, killed and beat her. All right, he cut her so bad up then, he lost his knife. The knife went up on the couch. He went there in the kitchen, got a book knife, and cut her throat. That one side, he took the chair and mashed her face in. And I don't know, I'm for the death penalty. So you can't be for it, or you can't be both ways. But the way he did my mother, it's pitiful. A person should have been, once he found out he did that 100%, they should give him all them pills, It don't take no 21 years for new evidence. You don't have no new evidence. And why do it take so long? Next gets mad. Our taxpayer money going on that. And then if they want to bring a racial deal this, all right. My mother was black, the man was black. but he could have been green, purple, or blue. I still had the same pill knife in now. And what it is now. And just like, what if you walked in there and see your mother on the floor, bucket, rolled, pulled off in a pile of blood? See, and I just bought the house and reminded for her. That was a dream life. But how that dude came in, my mother used to collect rent from people across the street. Then that's how he managed to get into my mother's house. And my mother put up a big fight. But see, she was so nervous, she didn't keep her hands, couldn't even keep her head straight. And right now I'm getting nervous myself. Every time this time come out, I go into a shell. It hurts, see. You just don't be knowing how a person feel when it's walked in there and see a whole big pile of blood in their mother in there on the floor. It's not right. And during the cold time, they had prison over there. During the cold time, I think the judge then went back to the office and came back. He had the nerve to tell the man that I was bothering him. See? After being killed, my mother won't tell people I'm bothering him. What am I supposed to do? And just like do it. Why do it take so long? But it's not, you can't go there and, then, wait till your parents get through everything then she could die. It don't work that way. It should have been, it don't take no 21 years to excuse of mine. Once they have proof, 100% that he had did for sure. And go ahead, don't do what you have to do. Don't take no 21 years. And just like I say, I sure hope y'all don't do that, because if you cancel the death penalty, people going out there killing anybody. Well, they say ain't nothing gonna happen to me. We don't have death penalty. All they do is feed me till I pass. But just like I said, it's not right. And I hope y'all really put yourself in my shoes. When you see your parent, your mother, somebody could have been mother, your brother, or sister in a pile of blood, everything cut up, and I'm still going through change. You really can't explain what you're saying, but it messes with my mind. I try to, trying to do different things, but right now I had a hip replacement, so I really can't move around. I used to like work in a garden, but I can't do nothing, relax my nerves and stuff like that, because I can just still see her now, down there in a pile of blood. And just like I said, I sure hope y'all, pass the bill for the excuse. Don't vote against the excuse. Pass for the excuse.
Thank
and
you.
What you could do, if you have any thoughts or anything, put yourself in my shoes for a while and see. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right, Representative Norton, you have a question for Mr. Gazzardo?
Mr. Wayne?
Yes, ma'am.
My question for you, do you believe, let me first back up just a little bit and say that my prayer certainly goes out to each and every one of you all's family who were murdered for whatever the cost may have been, and at the time that this accident, and I don't guess it's an accident, happened, but let me tell you what my question is. Do you feel that those persons who were not guilty should be punished the same as those who are guilty?
What people are you talking about, Ms.
Those people,
What people?
the people that who has been found innocent of many different crimes that they were found guilty at that particular time. Do you feel that they should be punished the same as those who did commit the crime?
Well, let me explain something to you. I have researched this very closely. Is that all these people that they're bringing off of death row doesn't mean they're innocent.
Really?
Some of them were released on technicalities. Some
Okay.
of them sentences were reduced.
So you don't really believe that they are innocent. You just believe it's technicality.
they're not innocent,
Because
I
if it's
would
not
never-
technicality,
Hold on,
Never warned
Let me-
anybody.
let me
Representative Norton,
finish so I can-
Representative Norton, let's let him finish his answer.
but I
and
need
you
to
can
ask him exactly what I
Let's
want
let
him
him
to
finish.
answer,
Ma'am.
so that way I know the
Representative
answer
Norton,
to my
Question you
question.
asked me,
Hold
Ms.
up,
Norton,
Ms.
do I
Gazzardo.
think-
Mr. Gazzardo. Representative Norton, we're going to let him finish his answer. Then you can ask your next question.
Finish your answer.
Go ahead and finish your answer.
You
Mr.
asking
Gazzardo.
me if I think an innocent man should be executed? No, not anywhere at all. I don't know where you're getting that from that.
But you just
this, I'm telling you about my case. This was cut and dry and sent all the way for 23 years. People from all over the United States came in here to testify. Experts. I know this man is guilty, and
Okay.
he does not deserve to walk.
My question is, I'm not asking you about your personal life. I'm asking you, do you feel that those persons who were found innocent, who had been charged and later found innocent, should be punished the same as those who did commit the crime?
I told you I don't want
Let
an
me
innocent
finish.
person
Let me finish.
executed.
Let me finish this time.
Wait, hello, order. Go ahead, Ms. Norton, finish your question.
The other statement that I wanted to make to you, I don't believe I heard, and maybe it happened, but I don't believe, I heard Representative Landry made reference to your particular family, anyone in your family that were killed. I didn't hear him, but I heard you say that he is putting all of this on my daughter. He don't think her life is this, but I don't think he said that. I think it's unfair.
Representative Norton, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
What's
Did you
your
know?
What is your question?
Okay, my question is, what do you think should happen with those persons who have been found innocent? Do you think that they should be let out of prison?
That's not up to me. That's
No,
up
but
to
I'm
the
asking
judge.
you because you've made several statements sitting at the
Do I
table.
think they should be? Ma'am, I can't make that decision. That's up to the district attorneys and the lawyers. I have nothing to do with that. But
Okay.
as far as Mr. Landry and my case, I'm talking for all the victims. Mr. Landry has made these statements that I addressed on several different occasions.
But I don't
And
think
I've
he
never
named
been able
out
to
any
address it.
particular
And I'm
family.
not talking specifically about my daughter. I'm talking about every victim.
Okay, I don't
Your
think.
3 minutes is up.
Mine?
Yeah, everybody's.
Well, I don't think.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gazard. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Hurley.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Mills. Okay, we have Miss Perkins, Miss Susan Perkins. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And Mr. Donald Davis. Mr. Davis, you in the chamber? Come on up, sir. Good morning, Miss Perkins.
Hi,
3 minutes.
Michelle Perkins. I started a grassroots group called Stand Up for Louisiana Victims. I'm kind of in a horrible situation because I'm from Livingston Parish, where Stephanie Gazzardo was my classmate from Denham Springs. I also live in Caddo Parish. I am married to a law enforcement officer that just celebrated 28 years with the law enforcement. I am insulted that Terry Landry has brought this before and keeps bragging that he was law enforcement. That's not what the law enforcement families think of the death penalty. We don't want to abolish the death penalty. Cops are getting killed. They've got targets on their back. On the way here, I just left Florida. I was on vacation. I come back here because this bill is being presented. And I resent that y'all keep saying he's law enforcement. Well, let me tell you, I'm a law enforcement wife. I am insulted that he keeps using that, because I can assure you law enforcement families across the state of Louisiana does not feel the way Mr. Landry does. I passed that funeral procession of that cop out of Biloxi, and I was fuming mad that I had to end my vacation
Ms.
to come here
Perkins,
to Louisiana
hold up,
for this.
Hold up. Ms. Perkins, we appreciate your passion. Trust me, I'm on your side. But
All right.
let's
My husband's just celebrated 28 years.
yes, ma'am.
LaValle worked for my husband. That case is going on right now, that change of venue. Y'all playing games, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, because, we got to get the right jury. I served in the Marine Corps. I resent this racism. We're all olive drab green. When the flood happened in Denham Springs, nobody asked what color. Everybody got in the boat and everybody helped each other out. Quit pushing this in Louisiana. And all these special interest groups better pack their bags, because that's not what the voters of Louisiana want. And I'm sick of y'all pushing this. I am a Christian. I don't know what Bible they're reading, but that's not what my Bible says. If you kill somebody in the state of Louisiana, they need to be held accountable. And I'm tired of the police department, y'all attacking these police officers constantly. And, 2 police officers were killed recently. Since I've been married, 3 police officers in Shreveport have been killed. One of them was a domestic violence. She was a young black female. She was executed on her way to work. LaValle was executed. We're waiting, because I can't talk about the case because we don't know, and I'm not going to accuse the accuser because he hasn't been to trial yet. But there was another officer, Prunty, gunned down in front of Circle K for no reason other than wearing a badge. You know, I don't know where y'all live in Louisiana, but I live in Caddo and I drive through Baton Rouge, and our cities are wrapped in crime scene tape. Law enforcement officers are up to here, and y'all talk about how much it's going to cost. How much of those task force are for Derek Todd Lee or for the code case down in Shreveport? He was a serial killer. They had task force constantly looking for the killer. And then to insinuate overzealous cops, that's an insult to every law enforcement officer in the state of Louisiana.
About 30 seconds.
You know, you were a colonel. If you really thought
Ma'am,
they were overzealous,
Ms.
then you
Perkins,
should have called them
hold on.
down.
Ms. Perkins, don't direct comments.
I've had it. I'm upset. This is my state of Louisiana. I can live anywhere I want in the country. I love Louisiana. This is my home, and we are not going to care where people. I don't care what color you are. The killer found the victim. The victim didn't choose the killer.
Ms. Perkins, we appreciate your passion. Thank you for coming to the Capitol. Thank you. All right, Mr. Davis.
I didn't come here with any prepared notes. Just a couple of points I want to make. First of all, the structure of this bill, where we're going to grandfather the victims in the past, is, to me, a fairly cheap trick to tamp down opposition, because obviously the future victims are not victims yet, right? Second, we've heard a couple of people talk about life without parole, meaning life without parole, absolute. And that's a fallacy. There is no life without parole in Louisiana as a fact. The governor can pardon. There are unlimited appeals on so many different levels that it's a big lie that's told to try to placate the families of the victims, that he's going to die in prison if he's sentenced to death, or he's going to die in prison if he's sentenced to life. That is just absolutely not true. You've heard Mr. Gazzardo, Stephanie worked for me at Calendars. What happened to their lives is indescribable. As a ancillary victim, my business was destroyed. My life was destroyed. It changed those murders changed my children's lives. The place that they felt secure, a place of family business, a place that we all felt comfortable, was suddenly a death scene. At that point, you realize that bad things can happen to good people at any time for no reason at all. The people that cause those bad things to happen should pay the ultimate price, and they should not have any chance of getting back out on the street and committing those heinous acts again. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you very much. Also filling out cards in opposition is Scott Kilpatrick, Chief of Police. Louis Lambert, representing the Louisiana District Attorneys Association. Lampert. Lance Maxwell on behalf of Jeff Landry, the Attorney General. Pete Adams, Louisiana District Attorneys Association. Tom Hawk. Charles J. Bailey, District Attorney, 25th Judicial District. Perry Niciosa, District Attorney, 34th Judicial District. Shannon Durman, Attorney, Legislative Liaison with Louisiana Sheriff's Association. Pat Soulier, LFRW. Joyce Lahad, Acadiana Republican Women. Mike Renatza, Executive Director of Louisiana Sheriff's Association. Representative Marcel, your question was for Representative Landry. Also willing to speak if needed is James Dixon and Peter Sheriff. If any member has a question, just let me know and I'll call him up at the time needed. Representative Marcel, 3 minutes.
I was waiting on the author to return to the table. Is he back?
Okay, yeah, come on. There's no more. So
come on. Okay.
We'll let him field some questions, then we'll let him close.
First of all, let me say to the families, the victims' families, that I've sat where you are sitting. And I think have testified several times before that I had a brother who was murdered. Both my brothers were in the vehicle. Both of them were shot at, I think, 14 times or something. I lost count. About somebody skipping in a line. My brother, who was killed, had nothing to do with the fight. Just got out to try to stop the fight and was killed. So, I understand your pain. However, I think there are different, people have different perspectives as victims' families. And I have a different perspective, and I have the right to have that perspective. My father has maybe a different perspective from me, but all of us are different. I was trying to push my mic to say that we're going to respect one another and hear whether or not we have a difference of opinion or not. I think it's wrong to call out a member and question that he worked for law enforcement. I think that's wrong. I don't think that we should badger victims' family. I think that's wrong. However, there are things that are before us today that's not specific to anyone's family or anyone who's been murdered. You don't hurt any more than I hurt. He wasn't charged with first-degree murder, even though 2 people were shot at. It was a discretion of the district attorney. And in fact, I felt so compelled to let him do 40 years because he was young. And I thought he had the opportunity to be rehabilitated. My father didn't think so. My father wanted him to have life. What I'm saying to you is every family member doesn't feel the same. What I'm also saying to you is the margin of error when we talk about the death penalty, when we talk about the cost of it, when we talk about one person to me that dies in this state that's wrongfully convicted, it's too many. It's too many for me when we talk about life. Then we don't have the drug to carry it out. So to me, we have people waiting and waiting. I heard the gentleman say, and I remember that murder at Callender's. I remember that. I heard you say 23 different appeals. So it's taking the family over and over and over and over, and the person is still alive. So for me, that's a problem. For me personally. I support the abolishment of the death penalty, not because anyone's family member died or didn't die, but because I think that people have the opportunity to really think to stay in jail for life if they commit a heinous crime. I also believe that we as legislators need to put some money into mental health, because anybody who commits the kind of acts that they did to your mother has a mental health problem. Something is wrong with them up here. That's not a normal person who commits this. So we've got to look at how do we fix this whole system? And a part of it is the public defenders don't even have the money. And that's why the appeal process is so long. They don't even have the money to defend them. The law says they have a right to these defenses. And so at the proper time, I'd like to move this measure favorably. And I will respect everyone in this building, and I expect that you should respect every one of these members. We have a hard job to do, and we have differences of opinion, but we should not be calling anyone out of their names. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Marcel. Representative James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first got to the body, Mr. Landry, I used to make the comment that, common sense just isn't common. I used to get frustrated, and I used to say that. But in year 8 now, I recognize that what's common to me isn't common to Mr. Howard sitting next to me, and what's common to him isn't common to Mr. Cruz. So we have to respect the nature of where we come from, our experiences. And in this debate, even the young lady, I respect her passion. You know, I love it. I love that type of passion. And for her to travel from Florida to participate in this process is commendable. And we need more people. And we need to hear from folks. But I know that you, as a law enforcement professional, the colonel, you stated that this was a change for you. And I look at certain things and I know victims. I've heard from victims on both sides. I've heard from law enforcement officers on both sides. I have a law enforcement officer who I went to high school with was shot by some punk that didn't want a ticket. And I sat with him in the hospital. So I know the hard job that you guys have. So I thank you, because not often as legislators do we come in and admit when we've had a change of heart. So I know how personal this is for you. So I thank you for the courage to do it. And I want to say to the family and to all of you that are here, we appreciate you taking part of the process, no matter what side you're on, because it's important for us to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I just may address Representative James. Listen, guys, and you're absolutely correct. This is part of the process. And I do not take anything that has been said personal. And I appreciate members attempting to defend me. Whether I was a police officer, Vietnam veteran, state police commander, all is not going to matter. What matters to me is I'm a child of the King. I am a child of the King, and I pray every day that this initiative that I brought forward, that I am doing the right thing. I pray every day. I respect the young lady's passion. I'm not insulted, and I don't take it personal. I feel for the families. I feel for them. And I don't take it personal. They're taking their frustration out on the author of this bill, and that's okay. This is the democratic process. This is the process that we have to live with. But I say this to some of the people on the sidelines, to some of the people who are eyeballing me like they want to jump on me. I fear no man. I fear no man. And I'm at peace. I am at peace, and I seek peace from all men. I fully understand, because I've not been a victim of a violent crime, but I've seen death in its worst situation. I still believe, whether it's in the streets, homes, that death by government is wrong, and that's why I bring this bill. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is a very tough, emotional decision, and I don't take it lightly. And let me say this, I have not made this made publicly. I'm not running for anything. I'm not running to seek election again. I have done 2 terms and have the option to do. I'm not running. So this is not for political reasons. I am not running to seek re-election. But I brought this bill 3 years. And I brought it because I believe that going forward, I'm not trying to retrial any of these cases. I'm not trying to get those individuals off. I'm just saying going forward because of all the imperfections and all the biases. And there are biases. And I challenge you to go find me a millionaire, a person who's got money on death row. Go find me a man that's got money on death row. There is none. Because if you have the resources, justice is for you. If you disproportionately, socioeconomically, and ethically, justice is not for you. Again, God bless all of you, and God bless these people behind me and their convictions and their belief. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative McNair, I'm assuming that was Representative Landry's closing. Do you still want to ask a question? You waive. All right, there are no more questions in the queue. Since it was closing, I got these cards late, so we're not going to take anybody else to the table. But we have Sylvia Martinez representing Louisiana Prison Reform, Kara Curlin, Innocence Project New Orleans, Ryan Haney, VOTE, and Dan Coots, Louisiana Interchurch. Okay, Representative Cruz, he was on closing. Did you, you okay? You good? You want to say something? Okay, we're gonna let him say something.
Just a couple points I want to bring out. You mentioned, Representative Landry, that death by government is wrong. I'd argue that's the only way it's right. It can't be one person against another vigilante. Government is carried out to do that for us. That's the arbiter. You mentioned this democratic process. It is, but we're a constitutional republic, and we have certain rights that you can't be taken away no matter how many people vote against them. And one of them is life. Life, we got to show people, society, our children how valuable it is by showing there's a penalty that's appropriate to that most heinous of crimes. Lastly, I hear a lot of people talking about how if we have any error in the system at all, we can't have this. I understand that sentiment, but it's completely wrong because we do that in everything we do. Decisions on the speed limit. We got 75 in a lot of states. We know it kills people. You've seen it. We're not going to lower it to 60 again, I don't think. But we know there is some consequence that's going to cause a loss of innocent life. So to use that for an argument constantly, I don't think's a good one. I guess I had a few others. 64,000 death on death row.
Hold
That's
on.
3 minutes.
I've already let him start. Go ahead,
But
Representative Cruz.
the cost is because we have not been carrying out the executions. That's why the cost is so high. If we carry them out as we're ordered to, it'd be much, much less. Life without parole. I do think some people here do not realize there's a bill that's going to be on the floor that eliminates that. If you're a mentor or whatever, you may be able to get out of life without parole. So that doesn't stand the way people think it is. And the biggest thing here really is it teaches morality. It teaches people that life is absolutely valuable. It's absolutely sacred. You just can't take someone's life because you want to, or they're inconvenient to you. So I just want the dignity of a human life is the number one thing to me. And that's the number one reason that I can't vote for your bill, because I think it's that important that we've got to show our kids, we've got to show society, we've got to show everybody that this is so valuable that you just can't take it willy-nilly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm
thank
going to
you.
let Representative Landry respond to that and add to his closing.
Thank you, Representative Cruz, and we just happen to disagree on that, but we're done.
Okay. Representative McNair, I'm going to ask you a question.
I'm sympathetic with the families, really, really I am. I am a Catholic, I'm a Christian, I don't believe in abortion, I don't believe in killing. I don't think you can legislate morality. I don't think killing a person will bring your loved ones back. I think sitting them in that cell for the life is what they need. That's really the punishment. And we need to look further than just having to kill somebody, get revenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Representative Marcel, and let me say this, I want to thank everyone for their passion about the issue on both sides. I want to thank Representative Landry for his comments, Representative Cruz on his, as well as the others. This is an issue that we've been debating for the last few years. And again, I think it's important that everyone vote. And so I am going to vote with respect. The chair objects to the motion as made by Representative Marcel. So we will have we will vote. Representative, Ms. Shake-Snyder, please take the roll. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A vote no would be to essentially defer the bill and not pass it. A vote yes would be to move the bill to the floor. So a vote yes would be to move the bill favorable to the floor. Will it be voted on again? A vote no would be to essentially kill the bill here in committee. And the chair will vote first.
Representative Mack?
No.
No. Representative Bacala? No. Representative Bagneris? Yes. Yes. Representative Carpenter? Yes. Representative Cruz? No. Representative DePlessis? Yes. Representative Dwight? Representative Gaines? Yes. Representative Hodges?
No.
No. Representative Howard? No. Representative James? Yes. Representative Marcel? Yes. Representative Marino? Yes. Representative Moss? Representative Mascarello? No. Representative Norton? Yes. Representative Pilot? No. We have 8 yeas and 7 nays.
The bill moves to the floor.
Thank you, members.
Nope. Hold your applause.